thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks
right.
for including
I'm
us.
thrilled. I'm thrilled. And
It's a little messy at the moment, but
no, isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
I guess.
That's
Every time we clean our desk, we aren't busy enough.
That's right. You're not really creative unless you're a little messy.
And busy.
Yeah.
It's good. So one of the things I'm really interested in is, could you tell me the earliest experience that you can remember in your life when you began moving down this path to where you are today?
I think all kids draw. The interesting thing is all kids draw and express themselves and create things, and depending on your environment or your parents, your teachers, you get encouragement. And so I got encouragement, and I seemed to be good at it. Was I any better at the outset than my peers? Maybe not, but I got encouragement.
Right.
And so I continued to do it because I got that affirmation.
Yeah.
And
I think there's an interesting yin to that yang. There's something in you too that either buys that encouragement or doesn't, because my brother could draw better than I could. He was always 3 years older than me, so of course, as kids that was a big difference, but we both got encouraged, and I took that to mean that I should just pursue it like crazy and make it my career. And he, went the other direction with it, and always felt like, I was encouraged, but he wasn't. But really, he was a very talented artist, but I think it was just the way we interpreted that.
The way we picked up on the encouragement. Yeah.
Right, or maybe, I got more enjoyment out of it than he did, and so the encouragement meant more to me than it did to him.
Right.
well, and the older you get, the more our culture, at least here in North America, like weeds out that it's not valued, right? Artistic ability or talent is not necessarily your usual academic track, and so it seems to get less and less encouragement the older you get.
They take it out of the programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm a little bit different than them just in terms of my background.
Right.
For me, it was about performing in front of people. I used to break dance. In third grade, I won the Seattle Breakdance Championship.
Wow.
And there's this comfort of sort of performing in front of people that led its way to projects that I was assigned rather than doing what was expected. It was always, how do we manifest this in a performance? How do we make this a 3-play act? How do we make this a video? How can I do something that's slightly different that sort of harnesses this sort of desire to sort of connect with people differently?
Third grade.
Yeah.
Third grade. So that means you were doing it long before that.
Yeah. As soon as I realized that my back could spin on on ground,
Sure.
that was it. And I
Yeah.
sort of was a wiry kid. So
Yeah.
I won the art contest in first grade to get my drawing on the cover of the school play, and that was a big deal because it was a first through fifth grade school. So there was definitely a lot of that in my early career too. The need for validation from some outside source.
Yep.
As time has gone on, I feel like it comes more from either satisfaction of a job well done, or else seeing it work be effective for a client, and seeing it pay off more in a literal way.
Right.
Happy clients are good too, but referrals from one client to the next shows that you've done good work.
my dad always told this story. My dad's a professor, so he's an academic, but he always told the story that his grandparents were farmers and worked sort of that baseline subsistence living.
Yep.
And they worked really hard to send their kids to college, basically their first generation to go to college, and they became sort of business people.
Yep.
And his parents, and they worked hard, and my dad went on to graduate school and became an academic and a PhD, and so we're moving up this ladder of cerebral achievement.
Right.
And he was always very encouraging of artistic ability. He said, you can go and become an artist, and that would be fantastic. You'll make no money, so eventually your kids will have to farm again, and the cycle will start over. But at least you're at the pinnacle, Steve. You lucked out, right?
Yeah. So what did you think about that possibility that you would lead the whole family into farming and
into financial ruin
living and financial ruin?
Yeah. Funny. I mean, I suppose all humor there's a bit of truth to with, and that's part of the cultural thing I was talking about, where there's maybe less value placed upon.
He was joking, but there was
joking,
but he kind of had that worry, didn't he?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And yet I knew he was joking. And I think that you talk about how does your early experience in life lead you to a creative career? For me, a huge part was parental sort of encouragement, even into higher education. If that's what I wanted to do as a career, they were okay with it. in fact encouraged it and
Right.
helped me figure out a way to maybe make it successful.
Yeah. Help steer you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Nice.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some strange reason, my parents too didn't seem concerned at all by my career choice having no practical foundation as far as, and I didn't pursue design or art because I thought I would make a lot of money off of it, but probably because they were both social workers and made no money, they figured it couldn't be any worse. But,
Right.
yeah. So.
Describe for me a little bit, if you could, the next steps, those later steps that you began to take that shaped you. What was next?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I went to a public high school here in Seattle, and it was a great school for a lot of things, but terrible for art. It was just one little windowless room with a very, sad tenured teacher kind of just running through the rote stuff. And so I somehow snaked a deal where I was able to take the bus down to a different high school after lunch every day in my senior year and take art classes where it was an art magnet school. But anyway, so I went there and I learned, had a great classroom with a really inspired teacher and lots of great materials. And, they had an airbrush room, which at the time was so
Wow.
cool. I could do
Yeah.
drop shadows and
Yeah.
all this pre-computer,
Yeah.
But they also had a computer lab, and I
Yeah.
went in there and I learned how to use all this Amiga hardware, software stuff, and which was top of the line at the time.
Yeah.
And was learning like 3D modeling and animation in high school,
Right.
which in 1992
Wow.
was not really in high schools. That was a big part of it for me.
Yeah. Steve?
I was a pretty good student academically, so I loved science. I was pretty good at math, it was this dichotomy again. Maybe it's this back to this is our creative pursuits valuable or not? When I first started college, I thought I was gonna go into medicine, so I took GE classes, but sort of a pre-med track, and I realized sometime during that first year that I just didn't want to do that. All the school and years, it was daunting to me.
Yeah.
I realized I was sort of squeamish.
Oh, yeah.
So medicine maybe wasn't the
Ah,
best
squeamish.
place. And so I kind of wanted to figure out how can I not abandon this love for science and this
Yeah.
analytical side. And so again, I sort of, in consulting with my parents, my dad really was like, well, you could go into, maybe you can go to medical illustration. You can combine this love for biology
Sure.
and science with art, and there's an objective. It's not just fine art. And so I went into the illustration program in college, and then quickly realized that everything I loved was combining type with images. I spent as much time rendering, hand-drawn typography as I did on whatever the subject matter was, and then was exposed to graphic design and realized that was a better fit.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Interesting. So from break dancing to the university.
Yeah, throughout all of my sort of education, I tended to gravitate towards the leadership roles and everything that I did.
Yeah, I could see that.
I just, there was this drive to succeed and excel and be the best. And I don't know if I got that directly from my parents or because I had a sister who was 4 years older than me who was so good at everything that she did that I always felt like if I didn't do better, I would always be in her shadow. And so I would...
Inspired by greatness.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly.
Nice.
And so I would be the one who would lead the group whenever there's a group project. I would be the leader.
Right.
I would help organize what the plan would be.
Right.
I would present the work. I would make sure that I would be the last eyes on it.
Yes.
You start to see how this frames for a
yes.
perfect fit for what I do today.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really enjoyed in college at Seattle University was the connecting with people, and that was the psychology aspect.
Right.
And I was really, I spent a great deal of time working with kids, underprivileged kids, in a summer day camp program. And I thought that I was leaning towards this idea of maybe a pursuit in child psychology. But as I furthered my studies in psychology, the social psychology aspect of why people choose what they choose, what influences us to make decisions, fascinated me. And it really tapped into it. And that's when I discovered that that's what marketing is about.
Right. Yeah.
And so through sort of a course of interest in that and connections through the first design firm I received a job at, the Leonhardt Group, I was able to sort of bring all of these loves
Yes.
into actually a career
Yeah.
without even realizing that
Yeah.
in college, if someone said, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
This was not on the list.
Yeah. Well, we knew that you were a perfect fit, like from day one. Yeah. So I remember that really clearly. It's like, oh yeah, I see this.
We were laughing. My very first day on the job, I had lunch with you and Carolyn, which was fantastic. And I was in a meeting with Steve on an annual report.
Yeah.
And Ron was talking about these paper dummies.
Yes.
And I'm just making notes of all the words I didn't know. And in my head, I thought, it's actually like a mannequin made
Yes.
of paper. Like, I didn't know what. And I finally lean over to Steve and I say, after the call, what is a paper dummy? And what was amazing was he spent 20 minutes of his precious time walking me through print design a little bit.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I was fascinated by it,
Yeah.
and I realized about a lot to learn.
Right.
But having
The danger of jargon.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But learning it by people that this
Right.
is their craft and sort of respecting it. There was an exciting time to be sort of bridging that
Right.
in an area that was kind of a new frontier for me.
Right. I think we got it.
Good.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
That was
thank you.
fantastic.
Great.
Thanks for having us.